Bitcoin bull market has just resumed. But before you rush in and FOMO buy back into assets, watch this video to the very end, as I'm going to be giving you what I think is the correct strategy for how to properly play not just this moment, but the next few weeks and months of the bull market. That's right, Trump and Powell are set to meet in May, which is a groundbreaking revelation and could spell the end of tensions between the US and China, something that we've been waiting on forever. But there is so much more going on that happened all within the span of just a few hours. Besant calling for mutual respect, Vladimir Putin offering a peace deal with Ukraine, predictions of de-escalation with China, gold finally selling off, India siding with America, and Bitcoin ticking up in tandem with global liquidity. All of this in a new SEC chair, and you've got yourself a recipe for a full reversal. That's right, the man-made virus of Trump's trade war has finally reached its vaccination point. We are actually curing this thing, and it seems like the black swans that could potentially have come with escalation are being pulled back off the table, and we will see a resumption of normality and a resumption of the bull market that we've all been waiting for. So if you're excited for a massive bullish pivot, no longer a time of uncertainty, then please hit that like button. It's a small thing, but it really helps these videos get out to more viewers. And in response, I promise to repent for my bearish sins. But in reality, the last few months of the market have been extremely complicated. Normally, things are pretty simple, but Trump is a wild amount of energy, and he's one of the most powerful leaders we've ever seen. And so our inability to understand what he really wanted out of this period of transition for the global economy led to so much confusion and instability that it brought up the possibility of him actually forcing a recession into coming prematurely before it might have naturally happened. I believe what we've seen today, which we'll go through right now, essentially invalidates that, and that we will see a resumption, not only of normality, but certainly a massive rally in crypto land that will last likely into the early summer, if not potentially later this year. And most importantly, I'm going to be giving you my trading plan and how I'm going to be playing not just right now, this particular moment, but over the next few months, because I believe that we will see a pretty impressive rally here. Check this out. First and foremost, the macro. Trump is meeting with Xi, and we know for a fact that China has been willing to meet and willing to discuss things with Trump since the beginning, but we hadn't negotiated, we haven't stepped up to the table. Trump was trying to isolate China with deals with other countries like Japan, like Korea, like the EU and Canada. And eventually, I believe that what happened behind closed doors is Trump realized that he was pushing the economy to the brink with too much uncertainty, and his team, specifically Scott Bessent, who we should literally be putting on Mount Rushmore right now for bringing Trump back from the edge here and talking some sense into him. Again, he's meeting with Xi, no intention of firing Powell. These were the two biggest question marks. What's going to happen with China? Is he actually going to fire Jerome Powell? We talked about how that would create a black swan event here on this channel. So it's extremely good that he's not doing that. Secondly, we see even more rhetoric about how America first, this is Scott Bessent speaking, does not mean America alone. We're now going back to a globalist style speaking. It's a call for deeper collaboration, for mutual respect among trade partners. Come on, guys, this is a complete 180 on what was happening before, which was disrespecting everyone, telling everyone they're freeloaders, they've gotten a free ride and they're gonna pay up. No, that's not happening anymore. And we can tell right now that we've pivoted into an entirely new chapter of the Trump presidency. And so whatever was happening over the last few months is no longer happening. Remember, I told you repeatedly that Q2 was the time that America needed to figure out which way it's going. We needed a deal or we needed de-escalation. Clearly, deals were not going to happen because they're very complicated. And so what are we getting instead? De-escalation. In one day, we went from China's going to pay, they're going to bend the knee, to this. Trump asked if he'll play hardball with China, says no. Tariff on China will not be as high as 145%. It'll come down substantially. Would like to see Powell be more active in lowering interest rates. Trump, if Powell doesn't, it's not the end. Trump, no intention of firing Powell. Stock market was up nicely. This is a transition period. Again, this is the Trump we thought we'd have, focusing on stock market, measured, understanding how the game works, not this wild bull in a China shop destroying everything with haphazard policies like tariffs on a level the world has never seen before. You cannot fix 50 years of progression towards a system, a globalist trading system, with just a harsh tariff in a few months. You can't just crush the global economy and expect everyone to be your friends and to jump in line. That is not how this works. works. So it's great to see Trump acknowledging that this is the system we're in. Like I said before, we're also seeing Doge effectively wave the white flag because balancing the budget and austerity, those are actually not bullish for Bitcoin. And so seeing Doge effectively call a bluff and say, you know what, we can't actually balance the budget. Elon needs to go fix Tesla, needs to go back to focus on building rockets. That's what's happening right now. All of the scary things that were leading to potentially black swans and collapses in markets, those are slowly but surely being pulled all the way back. And so the euphoria pump on gold is coming to an end as well, which is of course where everyone was hopping as a safe haven when they thought, hey, look, the stock market's going to fully collapse. Bitcoin and crypto, all risk assets are going to fully collapse. We need to hop into gold. That's the only thing we can buy. But one thing I think is kind of interesting is that Bitcoin is pumping like crazy. Bitcoin was also pumping with gold over the few days before this announcement. So we've seen Bitcoin pumping on a safe haven narrative as well as pumping on a risk asset narrative. I think that the true framework here is that Bitcoin is purely and simply a liquidity reflexive asset. It reflects the amount of liquidity in the system. It behaves like a risk asset in that way. And then also it behaves like a safe haven asset when things get really sticky because of its international, decentralized, and permissionless nature. This is an insane asset. It's definitely the asset of the century. That's why I've dedicated my life here to cryptocurrency, because this stuff is going to change the world. It already is. And so again, you can see here on this chart, this global liquidity chart, which we've been showing periodically here, this is now reconnected almost perfectly with Bitcoin, and it's starting to track up with global liquidity, which continues to expand up at least into the middle end of the year. And now we finally have Paul Atkins taking over the SEC and signaling a reorientation, and that crypto will be his top priority. We'll talk a little bit about this in later episodes, but effectively, I think this is going to be extremely bullish, especially for builder projects, which will likely qualify for non-securities treatment, but it won't be for every single project. If you want to build something and say, hey, we have a service, we have a product, and it's not just a meme token, I believe there will be stringent regulations to actually qualify for non-securities treatment, and that hardcore projects that are doing the right things will qualify and will benefit tremendously from this new regulation. This is going to bring trillions of dollars onto the blockchain. And so, yeah, we pretty much saw Trump go all in. Xi calmly called him, and then he folds. Once again, people get mad when crypto guys have macro takes, but this was my take on, April 15th here. China can wait 10 years to win this trade war. Trump has 1 year before we get a midterm election. This is the biggest flaw in the plan, is that they don't have elections. China's ability to withstand pain is significantly higher than the United States is, or, our trading partners, EU, Australia, Canada, everyone who's being brought to their knees by this current regime. Again, the perception that Q2 was when all of this needed to resolve, I think was extremely accurate. And now we're seeing that resolution, and it's time for those of us with cash to deploy to figure out how to deploy it. So with that said, let's finally jump into the fun part, the coins, the numbers, the targets, and how I'm playing the next few weeks of crypto land. So as you can see here, Bitcoin broke this diagonal and it's just exploded up. And it's above this tariff rollout, which is really significant. It shows that the effects of the trade war have been all but reversed. Of course, we're still far under the prior all-time high. And while this could move a little bit higher, we're kind of in this prime trappy zone. We're actually exactly where we were when we first had this reversion bounce that we sold into before all this badness and madness happened. And so the question is, what happens next? Well, it is possible that we just keep pushing up here. It is possible. But I think what's more likely is that we at least come down and test this breakout zone, which was this prior tariff announcement, this 87K, 88K. But I think it's totally possible that we even revisit the 80s in early May as the euphoria of this moment wears off and we just start to build better price stability. Remember, this is our last low here. This is our last big low, is 74K. So we could come down into the lower mid 80s and still have it be a higher low and then work our way up. In fact, that's generally my base case. Effectively, that we'd have a low in May and that we'd have an equities bottom in May, and then we'd get a real reversal and new all-time highs as we're coming into summer. We're also seeing Wyckoff distribution on the USDT dominance, which is of course a measure of how much stable coins are dominating the actual crypto market caps. The higher this goes, the worse it is for our assets, the worse it is for our bags. So seeing this means that it should go lower. And as it goes lower, that should mean that our coins go higher. And I've been talking a lot with Eric in the background. He believes that essentially USDT dominance will bottom in this red circle zone near the prior lows from earlier this year, from December, and that will mark the effective high of this market cycle. So when it comes to looking at how to time the top, I think it's going to be a little bit tricky because I do believe the animal spirits are right around the corner. And I believe that we should all be emotionally prepared for that because we've removed the black swan possibility. Almost everything's been reset. Most coins are still 80 to 90% down from their highs. The good ones are 60 to 80% down from their highs. And there are still so many opportunities here to make money. The question is how to make the most. Now, of course, if you didn't sell anything on this dip, you're just hodling, you're doing great, because coins like Taobot that are some of our favorites on this channel that we've talked about multiple times in this dip are doing great. It's up almost 3x over the last 7 days. You can see here, this is a massive, massive reversion. And it shows that the hunger specifically for the Tau ecosystem and for beta to Tau is there. I would not be surprised to see this thing. I mean, look at that chart. It's just ripping. I would not be surprised to see this thing make new all-time highs in the not too distant future and do multiples of that by the time that this market cycle has ended. Also, on the day that the Trump coin is unlocking hundreds of millions in supply, we have Trump announcing that he's going to have a dinner with the top 200 holders. Again, this spiked the chart all the way up to $18, absolutely crazy, and it's been falling pretty aggressively ever since. So in short, I have about 20% of my portfolio in cash right now, and I'm waiting for the animal spirits of this moment to die down for me to then rotate that cash back into my favorite plays. First and foremost, I'm going to rotate it into the majors, into the big dominant winners of the cycle, hopefully at the lowest point possible. Again, you already know that we're going to be buying as much Bitcoin as we can get, but we also have some dominant other leaders, and I've broken these into my favorite categories. We have Bitcoin, decentralized gold, we have layer ones, we have decentralized exchanges or perps, we have AI, and we have gaming. We also have RWA. So that's 6 categories, and I have them all listed right here. First and foremost, layer ones, let's go with Solana. Now, obviously Solana, we got tired and we sold this thing about $200. That was because of the rugs happening, the Libra token and such. It's currently still at a $50 discount from that, a 25% discount, but I believe we'll get a chance to buy it a little bit lower, maybe in the $130 to $140 range. I'll be looking to lunch up on Solana in this lower high and ride this thing back up. Again, I love Solana. I think it's going to be a great play, continuing to be a great play. The more people get mad at it, the more it continues to be a great play. But again, if there's one asset to own in the layer one space, it's Solana. I do think Ethereum does have a significant better performance over the next few months than it has over the last few years, but still I'd rather own Solana for gains than Ethereum. That's just my personal perspective. Next, let's talk about Hyperliquid. Again, we have been screaming about this one all through the dip, and it's up about 2x. It's up about 100% from the lows here, and we were able to get some entries into Hyperliquid in the extremely low double digits in the $10 to $12 range. I still think it's a great buy, and I'd like to get a little bit more if we come down and retest this sort of $16 to $17 range. I'd like to see it make a new lower high, sort of test this breakout level, and then we will see this thing, I think, rise at least to the range highs. Potentially, you know, it went all the way up to the high 30s. I think that that's an interesting target. It might even make new highs throughout the summer, but this one is just solid. It is a very, very solid play, and I think it occupies its own category now in crypto land, which is the on-chain hardcore trading facility. Very, very interesting, and I think it's something that makes crypto better in general, which is why I want to support it. Next, we have BitTensor Tau. Now, this to me is by far the best AI play. You're seeing the explosion of Taobot. That's the beta play. That's the higher risk, higher reward play. But I want to get even more Tau on this ripper. And if I can see Tau come down anywhere around that $300 range or slightly below, that's where I want to be getting that next higher low. Hopefully we can get that in May, and then we can load up on Tau for the rest of the cycle. Finally, of course, you know, the baby Super, the Super cycle continues here. And Super is actually integrating now with Skillful AI. It's integrating with AI and gaming coins. I commented here, Super's an AI coin now, question mark. I actually knew this was happening, but I didn't know it was happening on this week. So I was really pleasantly surprised to see Super getting some utility as an AI coin. But in general, Super has kind of established itself as the single easiest way to get exposure to the gaming niche. To me, the easiest way to play crypto is to hold the strongest coin in each category. And you can judge that by how strong the coin has held on to any gains from the lows of the cycle. And Super stands alone in its own category in that regard. I think Super has shown itself obviously as the strongest gaming coin, and whenever gaming season does roll around, Super will be one of the main beneficiaries. It allows you to generally be optimistic about gaming without taking specific risks on any specific games. And in that way, I believe it is kind of a perfect way to get exposure to gaming without the pitfalls, which are of course that most games fail. And so there it is. This is the category leaders list. You have Hyperliquid, Solana, Bitcoin, BitTensor, and Superverse. Obviously, Chainlink is the RWA RWA leader. If you want exposure to RWA, you could also opt for Ondo, which is a more specific RWA only coin. But I think Chainlink is, if you were to argue what's the biggest and most dominant coin in a category, it would be Chainlink, which is servicing all RWA. It's sort of foundational tech. Look, I'm not going to BS you. I think that on the next dip, obviously filling your coffers with category leaders in these turbulent times is good. But let's be real. We've all seen the explosive rips out of some of the bigger meme coins, out of some of the super small cap stuff like Taobot. There's going to be even more gains on the smaller coins. And right now, as a content creator, it sort of feels like, why take the risk covering small coins when in reality, people are just going to get mad if they fall? But also, I think that the value of channels like this is to unearth opportunities like Taobot that are going to go absolutely crazy, that are the ideal beta plays and gems in the rough. That's effectively the backbone of this channel. So of course, I will be coming out with videos, striking a balance, showing exactly when I pivot more fully into small caps. And while anything's possible, we've seen this world changing very rapidly. I do believe that in the period starting in May and lasting probably maybe a month or 2 or 3, we will see the animal spirits truly hit crypto. And that could be one of the best times and most profitable times in this industry. I believe we are getting the final piece of the bull run, the one that I've been so intent on selling into, that we've been waiting for years. I know I did flip-flop. I got super thrown off my game by this Trump nonsense. To be fair, I saw this happen across the industry, but as always, we are not giving up. In fact, like I said, there is a massive announcement coming to the Superverse very soon. So if you're not staked, you're going to be sad. You're going to be very unhappy. We were going to release this regardless of market conditions, but it just so happens that these market conditions are blessing us. So make sure you're staked and be ready for the part of the bull run that we've been waiting for. But also understand, I believe this will be the last act of the bull run before a bear market. I don't think we get the same multi-year bears that we've seen in the past, but I do think we will see a cooling off and a reset after this animal spirits period hits. As always, if you enjoyed the video, make sure to like, leave a comment, and watch this video popping up right now.